right. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Just a little bit of background about myself. My interest in snakes started in 1963. We moved away from Johannesburg to a small farm, and we just found snakes here, and everything was killed. I asked my parents all the questions I could think of, and they just had one standard answer: we don't know, we don't know, we don't know. So I started looking for information about snakes and started reading whatever I could find about snakes, and then became absolutely fascinated with the subject. And 2 years later, in 1965, I started catching snakes. Didn't know much, just tried whatever I could when I found a snake. And it just grew from there. My first accident was in 67 when I was spat in the left eye by a rinkels, which is a elapid we have in South Africa that can spit venom. In that same year, I collected many of these rinkels, and I started doing venom extraction from those snakes. So that was at the age of 12, I was doing venom extraction. I didn't know how to process the venom. I just had the raw venom, and we just kept it in the fridge, and eventually we just threw it away because we didn't know how to process it. But the bug had bitten me. In 1970, I delivered 15 grams of rinkels venom to a snake park, and they had received an order from Germany for this venom. So that was my actual first venom delivery. So that's the job I always wanted to do, but there was no opportunity. After school, I wanted to become a veterinarian, but we had no money, and so I was told to just find some kind of employment, and so that was it. I just went into the employment field, and I found a job as a technician for photocopying machines. So I was photocopying machine technician and service manager for 10 years. And then I went selling photocopiers, then I went selling insurance, then I went back to another photocopying machine company. I was there for 9 years, then I was retrenched. Then me and a friend started a import-export company. We went to the USA for 6 months trying to sell products in the USA. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it. We came back with all the medical products we could find in the US, and then we started importing those products and selling them in South Africa. Unfortunately, me and my partner ran businesses different, and so I saw it was better for me to leave that business. I left it, I sold my shares. Then I had a small medical company that I was still supplying medical disposable product to hospitals. And then in 1999, I got the contract to supply snake venom for the antivenom unit. So my first extraction from snake venom was in 67. And it took till 1999 before I actually got the contract to supply the venom. Right, so once I had the contract, I had to collect all these snakes and supply the venom. I lived between Johannesburg and Pretoria. It's two of the main cities in South Africa. So very soon people heard about what I'm doing, and they would knock on my door to come ask me questions about snakes. I have somebody here on a Monday, and I have somebody here on a Wednesday, I'll have somebody on a Friday. And these guys just waste my time. I soon found out that they all have more or less the same type of questions. How do you catch this? What happens when it bites you? How will you treat this bite? How can you catch black mambas, etc., etc.? And I then started putting together snake training courses. That's how I actually kept the company going. I soon found out snake venom is not very lucrative. Even though you have a contract, when you supply the venom, the money you get for the venom supply does not cover the cost. So, supplying the venom was then my business. I was doing the snake training courses. I soon found out that snake training courses is the way to go. That is what keeps my business going. The venom supply became a service public service, community service, whatever you want to call it. Because we collect the venom for a year, we deliver the venom, I invoice the antivenom unit, and I get between a quarter or a third of my money back that I spent to look after and maintain those snakes. So there's really no money in venom supply. So yeah, we keep 500 snakes. We keep lots of mambas. We have black mambas, green mambas, Jameson mambas. Those are the three we use for the polyvalent antivenom. We have puff adders, gaboon adders. With the gaboon adders, we supply venom from both the eastern and western gaboon adder. Then if we go to the cobras, we have many of those. Once again, spitting cobras, the Mozambique spitting cobra is part of the polyvalent. 3 non-spitting cobras, the Cape cobra, the snouted cobra, and the forest cobra. So that is the present day polyvalent antivenom. If we go back in history, antivenom in South Africa, there was a doctor, his name was, let me just make sure now that I got this right, Dr. Watkins Pitchford. In 1901, he started looking at antivenom in South Africa, but he never came to a full production. The last we hear of him is about 1915. We don't hear anything more about him after that. So then there was a gap. Meanwhile, during this gap year or years, Mr. Fitzsimmons with the snake park in Port Elizabeth was sending Cape cobra venom and puff adder venom to Albert Calmette in Saigon. And so Dr. Albert Calmette was making antivenom that he was sending back to South Africa, and this antivenom was then supplied to the public if they were treating any snake bites. So antivenom production, full on, only started in the 1930s in South Africa. The company that started was called South African Institute for Medical Research, SAIMR. So SAIMR was making antivenom. First antivenom they made, once again, was with the Cape cobra and the puff adder venom. They thought this antivenom would be good for any snake. It wasn't. All right. The antivenom was very specific. They soon found out wrinkles venom wasn't neutralized properly by this antivenom. They added wrinkles venom to the mix. Then they discovered gaboon adders in the northern KwaZulu-Natal. So gaboon adders was also added to the mix. Right, that was called a tropical antivenom because gaboon adders are tropical snakes that just enter South Africa in the northern KwaZulu-Natal part of the country. With this antivenom, that was our standard antivenom from the 30s through the 40s into the 50s. In the late 1950s, first fatal worm-slung bite reported. That was in the USA with Dr. Smith, Carl Smith. And then they started looking at making an antivenom for worm-slung. So this was successfully done in 1960. So we had our polyvalent antivenom and we had worm-slung antivenom. They also discovered that these two antivenoms don't work on mamba bites. So they started working on that. In 1965, we had a mamba antivenom. It was made with black mamba, green mamba, and the Jameson's mamba venom. Now, we live in South Africa. We don't get Jameson mambas here. The reason why Jameson mamba was included is during the Second World War, South African soldiers were sent north to go fight the Germans. And through their march into Africa, they discovered a different mamba that we don't get here, the Jameson green mambas. And so the antivenom unit thought, well, maybe we should just add it, and so they did. So we got the 3 members, separate antivenom. In 1971, they combined the antivenom. So the polyvalent antivenom with the Cape Cobra, puff adder, Rinkel's gaboon adder, they added to that the 3-member antivenom, and then they added some cobras, the Mozambique spinning cobra, the snouted cobra, forest cobra, and Cape Cobra, making it 10 snake venoms. So that is the polyvalent at present. 10 snake venoms is used for our polyvalent antivenom. It is in fact more than 10, because as the scientists look at different species of snakes, they find that, well, this is actually not that species, and they split it. So we have Eastern gaboon adders and the West African gaboon adder. We use both of those venoms in the manufacture. So that brings it up to 11 snake venoms now. The forest cobras have recently been split into 5 species. The forest cobra we get in South Africa is the brown forest cobra, Niger subfulva, right? Niger melanoluca is also added. So now instead of having 11 venoms, we actually have 12 snake venoms that go into the manufacture of our polyvalent antivenom. Now, this antivenom is regarded as a gold standard in Africa. It is very good polyvalent antivenom. It works very well. Unfortunately, it is not a cheap product, and very often the people that get bitten by snakes cannot afford the antivenom. I don't know how we're going to make antivenom cheaper. I've racked my brain. I supply venom at a loss. I can supply it so that they don't have to pay anything for the venom, so that I just supply it as a public service. But still, it's not going to make a big drop in the price, even if I don't get paid for the venom. So somehow we need to find a method where we can make antivenom a lot cheaper, so that the poor people that get bitten by snakes that cannot afford it will be able to afford the antivenom. Now, I don't know if there's any questions at this stage. I'm happy to have people ask me questions. Or I said I'm not sure if you're just going to...
Mike, I have a question about the polyvalent antivenom.
Yeah.
Is it right that a snakebite patient who's been bitten by one of the 12 species covered by that antivenom requires a higher dose of that polyvalent antivenom than they would of a theoretical monovalent antivenom that was specific to the species that bit them? Is that correct?
Yeah. That is correct, Andrew, yes. You must realize that in that polyvalent, we have the antibodies for all 12 of those different snakes now.
Right.
And so, yes, for sure.
So they sort of compete with one another to bind the snake venom toxins. The other 11 are in the way.
Correct.
The concentration is lower. So,
yeah,
I mean, I realize that these monovalent antivenoms don't exist. And if they did, it would really require a lot of investment in snake identification by patients and healthcare providers in order to know which one to use, that's the area where I've been working the past few years, so I've been thinking a lot about it. But I wonder if that would help reduce the cost, less product per patient if they need one vial instead of, 10 or something.
Yeah, no, for sure it would, but the accuracy of getting it right is the difficulty. And if you look at what Australia has done, all right, they used to manufacture monovalents plus a polyvalent. They've dropped the monovalent. Why? Why have they dropped the monovalent? It seems like just a good dose of polyvalent does the trick.
Mm-hmm. So, sure, and if every patient can afford it, then why not?
Yeah.
I mean, you make the entire process, the emergency room process, much more streamlined, quicker, and more efficient this way. So it makes sense, but Yeah, biochemically, I'm just thinking about it and trying to understand a bit why it's this way.
Yeah, look, with the boomslang, we've kept it at a monovalent because boomslang bites are rare, firstly.
Hmm.
And secondly, normally the person that was bitten can identify the snake, or he can tell you, look, my pet boomslang bit me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's normally hunters that get bitten by those snakes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we've kept it as a monovalent. Also, it's difficult to get the venom. It is a real pain in the backside to get the venom.
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, we kind of have the same situation in the United States where we have a polyvalent for all our vipers, but we remained monovalent for coral snakes because they are so different. The bites are very
yeah,
rare.
yeah,
Few people are bitten. The snakes themselves are rare. So
yeah.
cool. Okay, thank you.
There you go. Right. Yeah. If you have a monovalent, 100% of the antibodies in that monovalent is for that particular snake. So you can inject less ampules, less vials to treat the bite. Yeah,
Sure, maybe you have the risk that 0% of the antibodies are useful because you chose the wrong
correct.
monovalent for that
Yeah.
bite. I'm sure there is also a baseline cost of going to the hospital, being seen, getting supportive care. Uh, at least in the US and in Europe, I think this is a tiny fraction of the cost of snakebite treatment, and the antivenom is the lion's
Right.
share. But a lot of that is so perverted by our healthcare pricing schemes in the US that I don't know if the real cost is reflected very accurately.
Right. Yeah. That is very critical. The sooner antivenom is administered, the sooner it can get to work. Right. In certain snake bites, like the neurotoxic snake bites, a late injection of antivenom can reverse the paralysis and you're okay. With a bite that's cytotoxic in nature, where it perforates your vascular system and the vascular fluid leaks into the body tissue and you get this tremendous swelling, when you inject the antivenom, it doesn't take the swelling away. The swelling is there, all right? So it's those snake bites are like your house burning down. You know, the sooner the fire engine arrives there and pours the water into your house to kill the flames, the better it's going to be. Okay. If you look at a mamba venom, it's somebody that goes into your house and it switches all the electricity off. Click, 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 off. All right. And then because you can't breathe, you die. You inject the antivenom, it's somebody that walks into the house and click, 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 switches everything on again. And then everything works again. All right. But with the other venoms, the cytotoxic venoms, it's like a fire in your body. It's destroying as it goes through your body. And that's how you need to think of it. So the quicker you can get the antivenom in, the quicker it's going to neutralize venom and it's going to save tissue. Now, the burrowing asps, we call them stiletto snakes in South Africa. Stiletto snakes in South Africa are not deadly. If you go further north, if you go into the Congos and into East and West Africa, you get larger stiletto snakes that can cause death. But because we don't get the deadly ones here, we don't make antivenom for them.
Mike, is that primarily because the stiletto snakes in Southern Africa are so small?
Yeah, they are small snakes mostly. They're in the region of 40 to 60 centimeters, and they have a very small head and small venom gland. The venom gland will probably be maybe the size of a grain of rice.
Hmm.
And the amount of venom they inject is very, very small. But then you get the stiletto snakes that have the elongated venom glands that go into the neck region.
Right.
And those are the dangerous ones. They can inject a lot of venom. And in that venom, you have the theraphotoxins, that very unique enzyme that causes vasoconstriction to take place. And it attacks the coronary artery, causes a spasm in the coronary artery, no blood flow to the heart muscle, you get a heart attack from the bite. Okay, luckily our stiletto snakes, all right, there is some cardiac arrhythmias, but we haven't seen deaths from our stiletto snakes. But yeah, as I said, further north there are larger ones that can inject more venom, and they are deadly. But yeah, it's one of those things that maybe in the future we could do something about. But right now, I think money is tight all over. In South Africa, it's similar like that. The antivenom unit is just doing what they've always done. There is no research or anything going on there. So they just produce 15,000 ampules of polyvalent antivenom per annum, and perhaps about 500 or so ampules of boomslang antivenom per annum. And that's kind of where they stick with, just that lot. Right? They know that they can sell more antivenom. They haven't got money to expand. They use 30 horses for the polyvalent antivenom. Each horse produces 500 ampules, so that's their 15,000 ampules production per year. And they sell it, as they manufacture it, they sell it. In fact, they've got antivenom on back order. They'll get some through the system, and it gets delivered to dispatch, and dispatch just fills up all the back orders, and it's gone. Then they wait for the next batch to come through, and it goes to dispatch, and it's gone. All right. There's nothing that stays on a shelf. It doesn't happen. They manufacture it, and it gets sold immediately. All right. So the price is subsidized for South Africa and SADC countries. SADC countries are kind of the countries that border South Africa. All right. And when I say subsidized, we pay 2/3 of the price of the antivenom, and the government pays 1/3. Any sales beyond that, they sell at, I would think, market-related product prices. So I think if you order from, say, the US, the antivenom is probably going to be, I think, $300 per ampule, I think is what the price is. Right, so they're going to get the bill for the antivenom, which is 10 ampules of antivenom. So if you're in the US, that's going to be $3,000. And then the bill for staying in ICU and for the doctors that look after you, etc. So I think the price of the antivenom compared to the rest of the price what's going to be charged is just a fraction. It might be 5%, maybe 10%. The rest of the bill is going to be ICU costs, doctors' costs, etc. Right. So the classes started because all these guys just came in and wasted my time asking questions about snakes. And then I started putting these classes together. So from January 2000, I've been doing these classes. I find mostly my clients are remote mines. Two reasons for that. Remote mines are where the snakes are. They're somewhere in the bush. They've discovered some mineral there, and now they start digging a hole, and then the snakes appear. And when those snakes appear, it becomes a health and safety issue for the mine. Mining is very dangerous. And so mining management want to limit any injury to any of their workers. So for them, it is an issue. Snakes around, they're an issue for a mine. They want to mitigate it. So yeah, that's where I come in. I go to these mines and I do training. So since the year 2000, I've been doing this now. So it's for 20 years now I've been doing training. We do a course called Snake Identification and Snakebite Treatment. So firstly, we show people how to identify snakes. We look at the dangerous snakes. We look at first aid treatment of snake bites. We look at what will happen when you get bitten by a snake. And then we look at the medical side. So you've gone through the first aid. You've got the patient at the hospital. I then show the people what is going to happen in the hospital. Okay, the doctor's going to do this, 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 and this. All right, you're going to experience this, 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 and this. Okay. And I show them some gory pictures of snake bites. And I also have a short discussion on allergies, because a lot of people are allergic to antivenom. So that's basically what we cover in that snake ID snakebite treatment course. My course was the first one that was registered for continued professional development points for the health profession. So doctors, nurses, paramedics, they can receive 5 CPD points when they do this training. The next training course we have is called venomous snake handling. So in the venomous snake handling, we teach people what equipment to use, how to use the equipment. We teach them how to approach snakes, different methods of catching snakes. Once we've gone through the theory, there's a few videos in the theory. We take them outside and we use the snakes that we use for venom extraction, and we put the snakes out on the ground. And I'll show the people, okay, this is what I want you to do with a puff adder. You use 2 hooks, you hook the snake like this, you put it in the container, go for it. And then the people do that. All right, so we will normally have small groups of snakes per snake. So maybe 5 to 8 people will work with 1 puff adder, and then I'll put that snake away. And if I've got more people, I'll take out another puff adder, and the next group will work on a fresh puff adder again. Because as you work with the snakes, they also get tired, and then eventually the snake will just be like a rope that you hook. It's not going to do anything. And so yes, we have access to a lot of snakes, and we use snakes for small groups, and then we change them to fresh snakes. So in that particular training course, the people are going to handle 4 snakes: puff adder, rinkels, Mozambique spitting cobra, and snouted cobra. So those are the 4 snakes they will handle. In addition to this, I do a special black mamba handling course. I've had many people that's done the first training course that go out and they catch mambas. There's, you don't have to do a mamba training course. It helps you a little bit with, firstly, the nerves. Mambas have bad reputation. People are very, very scared of them. All right. And so that training course, firstly, we do a little presentation, and then we go outside. All right. And the first thing we do is what we call tail and hook. I want the people to tail and hook a mamba. All right. Now, in the mamba training course, we have it a little bit different. Each person will have his own mamba that he is only going to handle. All right. So there's not a group that's going to handle a mamba, and then you get to number 7 or 8, and then the mamba's tired and it doesn't do what it needs to do. So these mambas are fully charged up. I put them on the grass and they motor, they move. And you got to run after the snake, and you have to control it with a snake hook. I give you a snake hook, all right, and I want you to catch that mamba. All right, so we teach a technique called raking. A lot of people criticize me because of this, right? But you need to understand, if you get a call out, you have to go catch a snake. They say to you, we think it's a puff adder. All right, you're armed for a puff adder. You got your hook stick there. And they say, no, it's under this piece of corrugated iron. You flip the metal and there's a mamba. You have to catch the snake with that hook. All right. You can't say, okay, mamba, just wait. I need to get to my vehicle to get my grab stick, my snake tongue. No. Right there where you are, you need to use the hook. So the technique we use is called raking. In essence, what you do is you grab the snake near the neck with the blunt end of the hook, and you drag the snake back towards you. When you take the hook off the snake is ready to go in the direction he's looking, and off he goes again, and you just drag him back again. You do this for about a minute or 2, and you can see the snake slows down. And once the snake slows down, it is then quite safe to grab the tail and then to hook the snake and to guide him to go into a container. Right, so that's the first part of mamba handling. The second part of mamba handling, we want the people to neck the snake. So here we need to control the head. And that's where you're going to use the snake tongue. You control the snake's head by means of the snake tongue. We show you the technique that you need to use. You grab the snake by the head, and then you will pose with you holding the number like that, right? And then you release the snake back into the container once again, a technique that we teach you how to do it safely, that you don't get bitten, right? And then once you've done those two techniques, all the myths that you read about of a mamba has disappeared out of your head, and you've got the confidence to go and catch those snakes. Right, I've trained many, many, many people. One of my best students was Sia Litschkekun in Swaziland. Right, she came to me in 2006, and she did the whole bunch of training from morning till evening, including black mamba handling. And then she went back to Swaziland. She needed a little bit more help after that. Did another snake course in Swaziland and got her going. And she has done wonders in Swaziland. She is a real asset to that country. She's got a heart of gold, and wherever she can, she helps the people. She's got an antivenom foundation. People can donate money so that she can acquire the antivenom and donate it free of charge to the poor people in Swaziland. So that's one of my very best success stories. I'm so proud of her.
That's awesome, Mike. That's really cool to hear about. Can I ask you, what kind of liability insurance do you need to carry in order to conduct these classes?
All right, so I do have liability insurance, but people that come here need to understand that this is dangerous, right? They sign an indemnity form. If they don't want to sign the indemnity form, they can do snake ID snakebite treatment, right? They can watch snake handling, but they're not going to handle any snake.
Right? Sure, makes sense.
You need to sign an indemnity form indemnifying me of whatever accidents might happen. Now, having said that, I have trained over the last 20 years, probably in excess of 30,000 people. I've never had anybody bitten on a snake course. All right, so that's the way we want to keep it. Myself, I was bitten on a snake course. This is the result of that bite. This was in 2010, so it's more than 10 years ago now. Remote mining site in Tanzania, a large forest cobra that we had finished working with. The snake was back in the bag, and the snake bit me through the bag, unfortunately, and I lost the finger.
Nevertheless, it sounds like an impressive record.
I've had 3 snake bites in total. My first snake bite was in 1971. I was bitten by a puff adder. I spent 1 week in hospital with that bite. With that bite, we took antivenom on the farm, intramuscular injection, as was the protocol in those days. Stayed at home. The next morning, the finger was ice cold, and we decided it's time to go see the doctor. We phoned our house doctor, our normal doctor. He says, don't come near me with something like that. He says, go straight to a hospital. So off we went to the hospital. I was admitted 10 o'clock in the morning. At 3 o'clock the afternoon, the doctor arrives at my bedside. He's got a large syringe full of yellow fluid. He says, I'm going to inject you with more antivenom. This is now, I was admitted at 10 in the morning. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 hours later. He said, well, I've had antivenom already, but the finger's ice cold. I want you to just check what you can do for the finger. He says, no, you need more antivenom. I said, all right, fine. He goes intravenously. He takes the tourniquet off. He says, if you feel anything, tell me. And he started injecting. He injected about 2 cc's of antivenom. And I felt this terrible itch on my back. And I said to him, there's something wrong. I said, stop. And then instead of stopping, he finished the syringe. Well, the result was spectacular. My body went stiff as a plank. I couldn't move. I'm just stiff like that. Then under my feet, the soles of the feet started itching, but I couldn't reach my feet. Then the palms of our hand, maybe a second later, started itching. I thought to myself, I'll get rid of this itch. All right. So the thought that came to mind is that I must just bite the flesh off my hand, then it won't be able to itch. And so I brought my hand up to my mouth to bite it off, and I passed out. 3 hours unconscious, anaphylaxis. When I woke after 3 hours, the curtain around my bed was pulled closed. I had 3 doctors this side of the bed, 3 doctors this side of the bed. Their faces and their white coats were the same color. It took them 3 hours to get me conscious again. So in that first bite, I experienced a snake bite, antivenom at home, antivenom at hospital, and anaphylaxis, all in one. It was a good learning experience. Second bite was a year later. In 1972, I was bitten by a rinkels, which wasn't a serious bite. Then I had 38 years without a bite, and then the last bite was this one in 2010. So I've had 3 venomous bites in 55 years of catching snakes. Right, so we put these posters together for the medical profession, right, just to help them. Okay, so with a neurotoxic bite, those are the snakes responsible for the bite. Okay, those snakes with a neurotoxic venom, okay, the venom attacks the nervous system, right, at the neuromuscular junction, prevents the signal reaching the muscle, so the muscle doesn't get any signal, so the muscle doesn't do any work. So you get paralysis. If you watch a person bitten by a snake with a neurotoxic venom, you're going to see over a period of time the person becomes weaker and weaker until they're unable to help themselves. So it's termed progressive weakness. So that is what you get from a neurotoxic bite. All right. The cytotoxic bite. Okay. So these are the large adders, like puff adder, gaboon adder, right? The spitting cobras, and also the night adders and stiletto snakes. Their venom is mainly cytotoxic. That venom attacks the body tissue, breaks cell membranes, perforates the vascular system. The fluid from the vascular system leaks out, goes into your body tissue. So with these type of bites with the cytotoxic venom, you're going to see pain and swelling. The syndrome is described as painful progressive swelling, PPS. Okay, so this is what you're going to see. We go to a hemotoxic bite. Hemotoxic bite attacks the clotting mechanism of the blood. Okay, so that venom removes verbeninogen from the circulation and perforates the vascular system. Right, because the verbeninogen has been removed, verbeninogen can't form a net to catch the red blood cells to form a clot. So as the perforation takes place in the vascular system, because there is no verbeninogen, the blood just continually leaks out. So with a hemotoxic venom, you're going to see a bleeding syndrome. So there's 3 main syndromes we're talking about: progressive weakness, painful progressive swelling, and the bleeding syndrome. And then we get combinations between these also as well. So what we teach doctors is that you need to know about snakes, what venom they have, and what syndrome they're going to cause. Right? A person arrives at the hospital. He didn't see the snake. It was dark. He walked outside. He stepped on the snake, didn't see the snake, knows nothing about the snake. All right? It doesn't matter. The doctor can treat the bite, because what the doctor is going to do, he's going to identify the syndrome. Without seeing a snake, identifies the syndrome. Then he decides how serious is the syndrome. Right? For instance, with painful progressive swelling, right, with a Sharpie, we mark how the swelling progresses. Right? And you combine that with the time. Right? So you get swelling of the whole hand within 1 hour. That tells us it's a serious bite. We give him antivenom. get swelling to the elbow or knee, you have a foot bite swelling to the knee, you have a hand bite swelling to the elbow. In 3 to 4 hours, it tells us it's a serious bite. We give them antivenom. Right? Hand bite swelling to the shoulder. Within 8 hours, it's a serious bite. We give antivenom. So we have these guidelines that we then have for these doctors, so they can just go to the chart and they say, okay, this is what I'm seeing. Okay, so it's one of those snakes that's caused the bite. All right, where I'm living, okay, we have Cape Cobras. So this is probably a Cape Cobra bite. All right, now Cape Cobra bites, these bites are quite unique. If the person's paralyzed and you give him antivenom, the antivenom does nothing, absolutely nothing. It's a waste of antivenom. So if you're in Cape Cobra area, you need to know that. You need to know that Cape Cobra is causing progressive weakness, all right? The guy isn't paralyzed yet, but he's starting to show that it is going to go that way. And once again, we teach doctors the very specific things that they must look for. In a neurotoxic bite, there are 4 specific things that we look for, all right? And so once the doctor sees those things, he gives the antivenom. So it's very specific. It helps the doctors tremendously. You know, it's almost like this is happening, go there. This is happening or it's not happening, go there or go there. It's very easy for the doctors. We give this out to our clients as well, the mines, so they have it as well. But the person that really works with this is the doctor. All right. So if you look at this, we have the different types of venoms, and then we have your pre-hospital, your first aid, what you're going to do. All right. And then this is where the doctor's going to do his thing. All right. So non-spitting cobras and mamba bites, neurotoxic venom, you want to contain that venom. Now, in Australia, Dr. Sutherland developed a technique where the bitten limb is bandaged in a crepe bandage to provide superficial pressure on the lymphatic system to contain the venom in that bitten limb. All right. So we teach that for cobra bites, that can work. Right. Mamba venom, no. Mamba venom is very small molecules. Now, if anything enters there from a snake bite and it's small molecules, those small molecules, instead of going into the lymphatics and the lymphatics delivering the venom to the circulation, no, the venom straight there at the bite side goes straight into the circulation. That's why with mamba bites you get the symptoms and signs so early. Mamba bites you on the hand. Within 2 minutes, you get tingling around the mouth. All right. There's no way this venom has traveled through the lymphatics and then was introduced into circulation. No way. It is too quick. All right. That venom has gone straight into the circulation. So with mamba bites, we prefer to shut the circulation by means of a blood pressure cuff. So we just use okay, I haven't got one here now at the moment. We just use a pneumatic cuff. Right, it's got a little tap on it. You pump it up. It shuts the circulation. There's no pulse. And you've got 90 minutes to reach your hospital and nothing will happen to your limb in that 90-minute time. Right. This is the same technique that orthopedic surgeons use when they do their operations. You've got a crushed hand. Orthopedic surgeon shuts the circulation down. Right, and then he operates, and then when he runs out of time, he takes the tourniquet off and let the circulation restore for 15 minutes, and then he shuts it again, and he carries on until he's done whatever he needs to do on your limb. Right, so we just copy from what orthopedic surgeons do, and we use it as a very quick first aid. Right. It's very quick and easy to put a tourniquet on the upper arm and shut the circulation. And you contain that venom there. Anything else?
I have one question.
Sure. Yeah.
So, regarding the type of antivenom, is there some situation where after the snake bite you can deliver the polyvalent antivenom and then to identify the snake species and then later to give maybe one vial of monovalent antivenom, or is it not possible to do it that way? Because
Right.
in that situation maybe you can not give 10 vials of polyvalent antivenom, but instead maybe 1 and 2 of monovalent. I'm just asking about.
Right. So in South Africa, we use only 2 antivenoms. The polyvalent, which is for all these snakes here that you see here,
Okay.
right? And then the monovalent is just for boomslang.
Okay. But in general, is it possible, not precisely in Africa, but that type of mechanism to give something which has a broad distribution and it affects broadly, and then to specialize it for one snake species?
Australia used to do that. Australia used to have monovalents for the brown snakes, for the other different species, all right? And then they had polyvalent. And in their experience now, they've done away with the monovalents and they just have the polyvalent now.
Okay.
So it seems like the polyvalent can do what the monovalent can do. The dose might be a little bit higher, but it just takes the guesswork out of treating a snake bite.
Okay, I understand.
It's like a broad spectrum antibiotic.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, I do have a bit of a follow-up question to that, and I realize we've gone past 1 o'clock now, or 1 o'clock where I am anyway, so I'll try to keep it short. So my question is about the variation in venom within species, particularly within these 10 species that are used, or 12 species that are used to produce the polyvalent antivenom. Obviously, it varies from place to place. Also, it can vary throughout their lives and even among individuals and population. How, in Southern Africa, what's been your experience with the efficacy of this polyvalent antivenom with regard to variation within species?
All right. So there's one particular snake in South Africa that we see a great variation in the venom, and that's the Cape Cobra. All right. So the Cape Cobras in the southwestern Cape have a very potent venom. And as you go north into their range, into the northern Cape, the Kalahari, into Namibia, the potency drops. Now, we don't know why. We haven't conducted any tests why that is. As I said, South Africa, we don't have any money. There's just no urgency to get any tests done. What we do for the antivenom is just simply we use Cape Cobras from the area where they have a potent venom, and that's the venom that we supply that's used in the polyvalent antivenom. So we don't even bother with the ones that have a weak venom. When I say weak, the ones from the south, in the Western Cape province, that venom is 3 times as potent as the ones from the Northern Cape into the Kalahari and southern part of Namibia. Right? The antivenom just they don't want that venom. They say it's too weak. We don't want to use it. So they just use the potent venom from the south.
Are there any complications or drawbacks to treating, for instance, a Cape Cobra bite from Namibia using antivenom produced from snakes from the Western Cape?
I haven't heard any reports, there's no reports of any drawbacks or things like that. No.
Okay.
Well, here's another interesting thing, Masood. Green mambas. So I did a test on green mambas, babies, at 7 months. The venom from the babies were 6 times more potent than the adult's venom. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And a year later, they were on par with the adults. So when they were young, they had a very potent venom. The quantity of venom was 7 to 10% only of the quantity of the adults, but yet that quantity of venom, the potency was very high. Maybe this is not the only snake that has that. I think there's many snakes that have been discovered that have that shift from young snakes to adult snakes, where the young snakes have a very potent venom. It's probably just to help them capture their prey when they are young. But then the other test I did was with gaboon adder. The baby gaboon adders and the adults, the potency was the same. There was no difference there. All right, so part of my training that I do in the first class, the theory, is that we show these people some horrible snakebite pictures. And when I show them those pictures and some people want to vomit in the classroom, I say to them, there's a reason I'm doing this. I said, this afternoon we're going to catch snakes. And as you catch snakes, you'll soon find out that snakes are actually very scared of you. They want to get away from you. They don't want to just attack you. Right? And that being the case, very soon, you are not going to use the equipment. You're going to use your hand to pick up the snake. And then you're going to end up like these people that I've just shown you the pictures of. All right? Be careful. That's the message I want to get across. I show them some horrible snakebite pictures. I said, the reason I'm showing you these is to show you what's going to happen when you drop your guard. Don't drop your guard. All right? Use the equipment when you catch snakes. All right? Granted, some people have gone from the training and they have been bitten. I know of at least 2 guys that have been bitten. Both of them were puff adder bites. And I warn them on the training course. I tell them, you must be so careful of puff adders. They are so deceptive snakes. The snake moves so slowly. You think, this is such a stupid snake. I'll just pick it up by the tail. But those snakes can spin around and bite your hand in the time that you blink your eye. They are so fast when they want to be. And they can be so deceptive when they just move along the ground. And yeah, it's just one of those things. It's the same, you go for your driver's license. You go to class to drive. You go for your test. You do everything 100%. You get given your driver's license. Now you can drive. And now you do everything wrong. You go drink. You go drive. You make an accident. But that's not what the driving school taught you to do. But now you're on your own and you do your own thing, I can only teach people, give them the skills and tell them this is what I want you to do. But if they go and do other things after that, that is not what I taught them, there's not much control over that I can exercise. I can just ask them to be careful, but I can't force them.
Yes, thanks very much, Mike, for your time and insight.
Pleasure, Andrew. Nice chatting to you.
Yes, you too. Keep in touch.
Yes. Okay. Good. Bye.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Right,